now about to witness the strength of street knowledge.
Hello, N.W.A. fans. We have gathered here today to talk about Krazy D, the lost N.W.A. member. Krazy D, which was his name back in the day, was a rapper who was technically part of N.W.A. And his raps with the rest of the guys from N.W.A. date back to the origins of N.W.A. He appears right on the front cover of the first N.W.A. album, which was just called N.W.A. or N.W.A. and the Posse, and he's on the bottom of the album in the blue shirt and the necklace, and he has alcohol in his hand, and he has a gun necklace. The story of Krazy D is very mysterious. His legacy is shrouded in mystery because we have no idea why he didn't stick around with N.W.A., and he wasn't around when they were recording the Straight Outta Compton album, but he was there from the very beginning, and according to him, he recorded a whole bunch of songs with them before the first album was released. None of his songs made the cut of the album. I have a couple of theories as to why. Well, there was someone back in the day who knew Krazy D and said that he always had a pistol with him, and he was always getting drunk, and he was a good guy, but maybe the other members of N.W.A. found him to be unreliable. Perhaps that's why he wasn't around when they were making Straight Outta Compton. Maybe he just wasn't quite as determined as a rapper as the rest of them in the group. Possibly. There was also apparently a strange confrontation that Krazy D had with Suge Knight back in the day, where there's conflicting stories as to whether who's really the person that started the beef or whatnot, but then it had something to do with Suge Knight punching him through a door or something. Really crazy stuff. But to me, Krazy D does sound like a good guy, and we all know Suge Knight is a piece of shit, so that's kind of how I view that story. Regardless of how Krazy D was acting, we all know Suge was a piece of crap, so. According to Krazy D, from some recordings that we have, he said he has about less than 10 recordings that were unreleased that he worked on with the members of N.W.A. And like I said earlier, none of them made any of the albums. But what's really fascinating is that there's one we can hear, and that's this song he did with Dr. Dre called Gin and Sacco.
Alright, D, kick shit. Orale, homeboy. Hey, this is Krazy D, man. And I got Dr. Dre in the motherfucking house. I'm gonna get kind of funky for you, motherfuckers. Yeah. Hey, Dre, I like it, hold I like it. Put it up a little more, man. I can't hear it. Yo, Gin and Sacco. Yeah, that's the shit. 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 Hey, Dre.
And it's fascinating to listen to because it's a very comedic song and it was never released. It's from 1988. It's similar to Gin and Juice. So that just makes it even more fascinating because we all know later on Gin and Juice came out with Snoop Dogg and Dre. Obviously, Dre first worked on this song with Krazy D years prior. So to me, I question the ethics of Dr. Dre on this one. Sure, you could argue Gin and Sacco is a Krazy D and a Dr. Dre piece, a song, but to me, it was really a Krazy D song because he's the one that raps all the lyrics in the song. To me, it was not Dr. Dre's call to just take what they worked on together and not acknowledge Krazy D at all, and then just make a brand new song with the original stuff from the original version. To me, that's really not Dr. Dre's call to do, but that's what he did. And I don't know how I feel about that. I don't like that. It seems disrespectful to Krazy D. I really don't know what happened. I mean, none of us know what happened. It was never revealed as to what happened to Krazy D in terms of him leaving the group, but he was definitely there, according to him, from the very beginning. According to Krazy D, he was around before Yella and MC Ren. So yes, looking at some old photographs and using just theorizing here, I think the original members of N.W.A. when the very beginning of it was Cube, Easy, Dre, Arabian Prince, and Krazy D. Then MC Ren and Yella came in afterwards, and then Krazy D was still around for a little while, but MC Ren and Yella don't really know about all these recordings that Krazy D did with the rest of the boys prior. So their knowledge of what he was with them is limited, and it's fascinating. That first album cover of the first original N.W.A. album, there's so many people on that cover. It's kind of like the Sgt. Pepper of rap albums, because there's all these people, there's all these figures that are mysterious, and the puzzle pieces of history are not all connected, and all of us fans are trying to put the puzzle pieces together as to what happened, as to why the second album, Straight Outta Compton, has only those members. What happened to all the other members of N.W.A. prior? I already made a video about the Arabian Prince being an original member, and now we have Krazy D, who is even more obscure and interesting because none of his songs ever made it to any of the albums. And Arabian Prince was on Straight Outta Compton. He's right on the front cover, and he had 2 songs on that album too. So going back to my first theory as to why Krazy D wasn't around when they were recording the Straight Outta Compton album, to elaborate more on my first point, I was saying earlier that maybe they didn't find him to be reliable, and he was a little too much of a hothead, and he wasn't as organized, possibly, as the rest of them. But on top of that, to me, that first N.W.A. album, it's not a serious album. It really is not like the Straight Outta Compton album. To me, the early N.W.A. stuff, it's like them just basically fooling around with a little bit of serious lyrics in there. It was like the early years where they were just experimenting and seeing what can work, and they were having fun, and they were joking around a lot. And yes, they were still joking around when they made Straight Outta Compton, but you can tell from album to album, Straight Outta Compton is a very serious album with a very serious message about society, about police, about corruption, whereas the first album, it's more comedic. And I feel like the first album, it's like we're not quite there yet with what this group is meant to represent. All the puzzle pieces aren't quite there, and the message that they weren't as serious. So maybe they felt like Krazy D wasn't quite on board with the message they were going for when they were making the second album. Could that be possible? Now, my second point, and this is of course another theory only, I am a bit of a conspiracy theorist. Could it be that the other members of N.W.A. sold their soul to the devil, and Krazy D was not into it, and he wasn't invited to be part of it, and that's why he wasn't around for that second album? Could it be that he wasn't going to be part of that camp because he wasn't down with the devil or whatever? Because to me, I believe that N.W.A. would have been successful no matter what, even if they didn't sell their souls to the devil for fame. But they definitely got more press and a buzz from the media, from the news promoting and showing N.W.A. when the Straight Outta Compton album was coming out. They didn't have all that stuff when they were making the first album. So I always think of that. Now, my third and final theory as to why Krazy D was left out of Straight Outta Compton was because, going back to my second point about, well, Straight Outta Compton was a very serious album, right? And the whole idea was that they were young, proud black people talking about the oppressive police. And it's in the name of the group, N.W.A. And Krazy D, he's Mexican. And he's part of them, but he's not black, right? I mean, he's part of them, but could it just be from not a personal thing, but could it have been just from a marketing perspective that they decided they didn't want Krazy D to be part of that serious message on that second album because he wasn't black? Is that possible? And if so, we don't know if that was a personal thing. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. And I'm not saying that Krazy D wasn't part of them, and he definitely was. He was part of their culture. He understood the oppression of the police in the world and everything. But who knows? Who knows what the disagreements were? Who knows if there was any? Did they just decide to let him go? Did he leave on his own? We don't have answers to any of these questions. When they started working with Jerry Heller, an old white man, and they were talking about how they were going to market themselves for that second album, could it have been that they were questioning this? I don't know. Now, also, I heard from some interviews on YouTube that from some people who knew Krazy D back in the day, they say that now he's just completely different. He has a wife, kids, or something. He has a different job. He's nothing like Krazy D like he was back in the day, where he was a little unhinged and everything and all that with the guns and all that kind of stuff. Because, people change in time. Sadly, maybe we will ultimately never know why, like what happened to Krazy D, because it's the same thing with the Arabian Prince. We don't have answers. And it's like we weren't there. no one was around to talk about what happened with them. Why did they decide not to really make them be memorable characters to the group? Because I think Krazy D seemed pretty talented to me, and so did the Arabian Prince. Now maybe they weren't quite on the same talent level as the other members of the group, but still they all contributed to the building blocks of what N.W.A. became. And even if they don't want to acknowledge them as much, they should still be acknowledged. They are still part of the N.W.A. legacy. N.W.A. was not just those 5 guys and that's it. There was a whole saga, and they had other people that helped and really loved what they were doing and were part of the same group. So their legacies in the history of rap should not be ignored. It's interesting because in a previous video I said that N.W.A. was basically like the Beatles of rap. They were all so talented, and it was amazing that they were all together even for that period of time, because it just seemed like they were gonna separate no matter what, because each one of them was incredibly talented. And that's exactly what happened with the Beatles. You know, when they broke up, they all had their own solo careers, and they were fighting, and they wanted to break up and all this kind of stuff. And just like the Beatles, they had arguments about money and drama and all this kind of shit. Talking about the Beatles again, there's a lot of fans that like to debate who was the 5th Beatle, because there were a lot of other band members of the Beatles that weren't the Fab Four. There was Stuart's Sutcliffe, there was Pete Best, there was George Martin, and they had songs they recorded with them, and they were part of the band. So could we have the same thing with N.W.A., who is the 6th member of N.W.A., Arabian Prince, Krazy D, other members, possibly the D.O.C.? On one hand, it's actually more interesting that we don't know the answers to these questions, because it gives us fans something else to think about, ponder over, and be fans of when it comes to N.W.A. as a whole, as an entity. It gives us something extra to be fascinated about. It's like one of these members of N.W.A. that don't get the respect they deserve. It's like other pieces of folklore, and it's really fascinating. So on one hand, it's actually a gift in many ways that we don't know the answers to these questions, because it leaves us fans to talk and discuss and ponder over them for a long time. But still, to me as a fan, it makes me question the ethics of the 5 of them, the 5 main members of N.W.A., when we have these other members of the group that worked hard and contributed to the group, and they never get mentioned, ever. They're not in art for the group. They're just not respected by the original members. And quite frankly, all 5 of those main members of N.W.A., they're all mysterious in their own ways. Cube is mysterious, so is Eazy-E, especially Dr. Dre is very mysterious. And when I say mysterious about all these guys, I mean the ethics they have as individuals and as musicians. I mean, they're rappers, but I would consider a rapper to be a musician, definitely in a sense. Just not a traditional musician, but a musician nonetheless. In my other video where I talked about the Arabian Prince, I talked about how incredibly unfortunate it was that Arabian Prince was never even mentioned or shown at all in the Straight Outta Compton movie, which was total cow shit. But now I'm even more annoyed, because it just makes me think, wow, imagine we could have gotten Krazy D in the movie too. It just could have been so much better of a movie. I mean, they ignored that first album in that movie. I mean, really. Imagine the movie where you see them taking a photo of that iconic first album where they first started. And they still could have told the truth about what happened to Krazy D. They could have met up with him again, made a deal, talking about money, royalties, becoming friends with him again, inviting him to the set, adding his input, and they could have showed what happened to Krazy D, why he left the group, why he left. The same thing with the Arabian Prince, the same exact thing. And it was just such a colossal waste that they didn't do that. And plus, the Straight Outta Compton movie made it seem like this group only has so much history to talk about. So it's going to be perfect for like a 2-hour length of a film. It gave off a vibe that there was only so much to talk about for some fucking reason. But that's not true. There was way more stuff to talk about, way more members to talk about, way more unreleased songs, way more to the story that wasn't there at all. And that could have helped the screen time of the movie. It could have made the movie way better like it should have been. But for some reason they wanted to ignore these guys and act like they were never there, never did anything with them, weren't friends with them, didn't record any songs with them, like they were ghosts or something. And us rap fans, and especially N.W.A. fans, we should not stand for this. We should not support this idea that the other members of N.W.A. should be ignored for history. Even if you want to look at the Arabian Prince and Krazy D and think that they weren't that talented and that they were overrated, even if you want to go think that, at the same time, you don't really know either, because you didn't get to hear all these unreleased songs that they recorded with them that never made the albums. Plus, regardless of your opinion of their talents, they definitely deserve respect for being part of them. They do. They deserve respect from the fans. And I get all these strange comments from the fans on my videos when I talked about the Arabian Prince, and now I'm talking about Krazy D, and I get all these comments from people saying, oh, well, they sucked. Well, of course they weren't talked about or remembered. What utter disrespect a lot of the fans have for the other members of N.W.A. It seems like there's a lot of rap fans out there that aren't interested in the true story of rap and all the people that contributed to rap. They're just interested in the narrative that each group likes to show of what each rap group is, or whatever. And that I find very bizarre. We should not be so naive because we love the members of N.W.A. that we should assume they never lied about anything, never lied about who was there, what was recorded, what happened in the making of the albums. I mean, come on, that's ridiculous mindset. Well, hopefully in the future, someone will do an interview with Krazy D and ask him why he left the group. Or was he kicked out? Hopefully we'll get answers to that, because we did get some answers from the Arabian Prince about this. But hopefully we'll get the answers from Krazy D himself before he passes away or whatever, so that we can tell the true story of what really happened. And hopefully all the remaining 7 other recordings that Krazy D has, hopefully he'll release them somehow. I don't know how he can legally, but hopefully somehow they could be leaked on the internet or something and we can listen to them. Anyway, this is the story of Krazy D, one of the lost rappers from the golden age of hip-hop, the 1980s and the 1990s. The mysterious lore of N.W.A. continues. Please like and subscribe. Let me know what you guys think. My name is SuperPat98, and thank you for watching.